Hi there, parent. When I was little, ghosts and monsters, they kept me up at night. Now, it's watching bilingual parents, just like yourself, fall into these 5 terrifying language learning traps that scares me even more. These are actually mistakes that can cause your kid to reject the language forever. And the scariest part, most don't even realize they're doing it. I mean, the parents. But no worries, we'll talk solutions today. So let's transform the tricks that these Halloween ghosts that you see along the way here try to pull on your, your family. Let's turn them into treats for your multilingual family. So welcome to Raised in Thailand. Here it's all about language learning for children. So we try to help parents through that, whether it's learning a foreign language or sort of like a multilingual setting. So let's dive straight into the first one.
I have a life, but not for long.
It's the mixed language monster. This monster mixes 2 or more languages. The fear or the scare is that they will not be able to separate in their academic career. What we can do about this is that we can have one language for one setting. So maybe that's a day of the week, or maybe that's a person, or maybe that's a context. So for example, on Wednesday, okay, we speak that language, or when we play football, we speak that language, or when I speak to daddy, we speak that language. So that way it becomes more natural for them they know what language they're supposed to speak, right? So how do we correct them? If they speak the wrong quote-unquote language, maybe just try to echo back what they're saying in the correct language. Because this can flip their brain. And you gotta be, like, as a parent, you have to be very aware of the language that you are speaking, because it's so natural for us to, if somebody speaks to me in Norwegian, I will answer in Norwegian. If they speak to me in English, I will answer in English. And we're so used to this, but you really gotta think. So if you want your child to speak Norwegian, you gotta turn that knob and just answer back in Norwegian. And this can be really difficult. If you wanna learn more about this topic, go and see our video. It's called Use This Thai Massage Method to Loosen the Language Knot. And I'm gonna put it in a card here. So, okay, the next scare that might be scarier than Halloween is the language learning horror story. Imagine watching your child slowly disconnect from their roots, as if their heritage is, slipping away. How can they reject my heritage, my culture, and so on? But they might not know the culture well enough to embrace it. So that could be the reason. And if that is the reason, how do we show them more of the culture? Is a question we could ask. Okay, I'm gonna sit here a little bit. You don't have to actually be in the country to show them the culture. Selyna, my daughter, she has been to Norway about 3 weeks in her life, and now she's 9 years old. But what you can do is to show them something that the country is good at. So for example, if we had the USA, okay, what would it be? Series, movies, entertainment, Hollywood, and so on. So try to think, what is your country famous for? And in addition to that, I suggest normal books and audiobooks. What I did is that I had a family member buy I actually bought used book online and then sent it to a family member in Norway. And she sent it in a batch to Thailand. And that way it becomes really cheap. Some people even give away books, right, for free. And audiobooks was what I was gonna say. Right now we're just using an app that is like $10 a month. It's called Storytel. Okay, let's move on here. I want to keep this video short. That's why I have some other videos that goes deeper into the topic. So I have my bilingual kid only answers in English. So check the card out there for that video if you want to see more on that topic. Moving on. The scare number 3 is the digital demon. And you might have guessed what this is all about. Yes, it is about screen time, whether that is TV, computer, mobile phones, or something like that. Because we believe putting on foreign language cartoons is enough to learn a language. But here's the chilling truth about why screens alone might be silently sabotaging your child's language journey. You know, if you speak to a pediatrician, they're gonna tell you that you should not show any TV to your child until they are 3 years old, right? And the problem is not that it wears out the eyes. Well, it is a problem with, you know, that UV light for the eyes, but the biggest problem is the brain. And when we have fast-paced entertainment, it really makes the brain passive. And the younger they are, the worse it is. So, but the solution here is not banning screen altogether, but it's maybe like what I would suggest is to actually have 3 different screen times. Okay, think of it like 3 categories. You have pure entertainment, right? That would be like mindless YouTube videos, cartoons, or something like that. And then you have pure learning, so education, which would be like school videos, and pure educational videos. And then you have that in between, maybe like a documentary about the universe that is a little bit entertainment and a little bit learning. So, and then you set different screen times for those different categories. If you want to learn more about screen time, go check out our Screen Time for Kids Isn't the Enemy video. I'm going to put it in a card here. And then we are about to start scare number 4. It's called The Perfect Parent Poltergeist. So what is this all about? You know that voice in your head constantly whispering, "Not good enough." The one making you feel like you're failing your child and their language learning journey? Let's talk about this invisible monster. So I think you need to set realistic expectations, and that really comes down to how many languages do you have. If you have 2 languages, it's easier, but if you have 3 or 4 languages, it becomes more difficult and it just requires more time. We had a video earlier about where I said in the title, can a kid really learn 6 languages? And the answer is yes. It doesn't, the brain doesn't stop it, but the time we have usually stops it. It usually needs a lot of quality time that you have to put down for a child to learn many languages. So maybe also reduce language activities and just sort of have fun with them and try to insert the language activities into the fun instead of the opposite. That is what we're all about on this channel, and we have many videos that goes into how you can make language learning fun. For example, the one about theater improv games, so try one of those. So just follow your kids' interests and talents, basically. And one more thing, if you have a son, just consider that they don't learn as quick as girls. That's my personal experience, and I think that science is backing that up as well. So if you have one daughter and one son, then maybe they need to have different goalposts altogether. And I will give one example from my own family. Up until Selyna was 6 years old, she didn't really speak Norwegian perfectly. But one day I just woke up and I listened to her and I was like, shit, she's Norwegian now. So that was a very profound experience. And it just like overnight almost, her mind just, or it was the accent, right, that made me feel like she was Norwegian. So in my mind, it just went from she became Norwegian all of a sudden. If you want to know more about how we can find your kids' talents, unique talents, and use it for anything, not only language learning, but anything, watch this video. Discover your kids' superpower. I think the cards are running out here because you can only put so many cards in one video, but if there are more cards left, I will put it up here. Okay, so look around here a little bit. Look at all these scary ghosts and, Halloween monsters. And tell me do you think they are scary? And which one is the scariest? Or if you don't think they are scary, do you think that these mistakes that do the mistakes that I go through here today scare you more? Tell me in the comments. So let's go into the last scare, and it's the time management terror. So picture this. Another day ends and you realize you've barely spoken your native language with your child, right? You know that guilt creeping in? You're not alone. Language learning requires time, we all know that. And, it's such a normal thing that you won't find enough time because you have work, you have stress, you have kids with different needs. And, there are just so many things in our lives that keeps us busy. But let's do it the other way. Let's integrate language learning into activities that we already do. So for example, I was going to send my nanny to buy some groceries, right? And I will usually write it in English, but she mostly speaks Thai. And then Selyna wanted to translate. And first I thought, oh my God, do we have time for that? And, that's going to take such a long time. But then I thought about it. Okay, that doesn't steal any time from me. And at the same time, it gives her an exercise of translating from English to Thai. So we did it that way. And that was great learning for Selyna. And that is basically one example of thousands of things you can do in your day-to-day life. Also, we want to use like waiting time, right? If you sit in a car, you do nothing, okay, then usually me and Selyna, we do like riddles and stuff, maybe in Norwegian, maybe in English. And lastly, I want to emphasize the importance of using or doing quality over quantity. It's not about doing so much. It's just about like being there with them and slowly, like having a routine, having a strategy is so important. And even though it might not work as fast as you want to, just keep doing it and it'll all turn out good. Have a happy Halloween, and I see all of you guys later. Bye for now.